This cold weather and the changing of the seasons has lately had me thinking a lot about Demeter and Persephone and their classic story in the Homeric Hymn to Demeter. So, what kind of lessons do we see in this story? So, let's talk about that and think about that today. So, like I said, it's cold outside, the leaves are falling, and it had me thinking a lot of the story of Demeter and Persephone. How everyone knows the story, how Persephone was the young, beautiful goddess who Hades fell for, in love with, and wanted her as his queen. And so he took her when Demeter was not looking, and when Demeter was not there. And we had grieving Demeter, who promised that until she had her daughter return to her, that the land would be barren and no fruit or vegetation would ever grow on earth again. And so we think about this story, and there are a few things that I notice and I think about. First off, whenever you're in a part of the world when it gets cold for the winter, you really notice a drastic change. And it is a symbolism of a parent's love, excuse me, of a parent's love and the grief of her losing a child. That it feels like winter. If something happens to our children, being a parent, I can definitely see feel like an eternal winter, where you don't want anything good to ever happen, that you're in a desolate, cold place. And that is what happens to the earth in this story, that the world suffers and there's nothing but agony and bitter winter whenever is something wrong with the child, that nothing seems to grow. But we also know that because the child is no longer with us, maybe if someone passes away, another thing that we see in the story is the coldness of death, that we think the child is no longer with us, that the child or the person that we hold dear the most is no longer on this plane with us. And when that happens, when the loved one passes away and is no longer with us, it feels cold, desolate, and abandoned. But they're not with us. But as in the story of Demeter and Persephone, she was still alive in the underworld. That in the quote-unquote afterlife, she was still alive. So that's what we can learn and what we can see from this part of the story, is that the mother's grief for the loss of her daughter is a cold winter when nothing seems to grow. That's how strong a mother's love is. And also the fact that if someone passing away or no longer in this realm with us, that they are still alive on the other side or in the underworld. So there is a story of life and death as well as a mother's grief. People who believe in reincarnation can also take it as a sign of reincarnation as well, that things die and go away only to be returned again. So like Persephone went to the underworld, in the spring and summer she returns back to fertilize the world and be the goddess of spring and beautiful flowers. And then she goes away again and then comes back again. So you can see that as a symbolism for people that believe in the reincarnation as well. So that is a story and a sign of the afterworld, and that we can return again for those that want to believe and choose to believe in reincarnation. You can see that in that story. So there are a lot of mysteries and lessons in the tales of Demeter and Persephone. So much so that the story of Demeter and Persephone had their own mysteries in spiritualities and cults based around that story, and this god and goddess, or the goddess is Demeter and Persephone, that taught about Elysium in the afterlife. So you can examine and study these stories and see where there's the afterlife mentioned and the coldness of when it feels like someone has passed. Just thoughts to think about today as I was thinking of them. Anyway, guys, hope you guys have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.